Yeah, Steve, did your session was selected for this year, this time for DynamicsCon? I don't know. I think mine was not.
Um, I is that what you're referring to? Dynamics Con?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, good. I was on the cusp. I don't know. I'll let them announce it. I was happy to
Okay.
let someone else present the new presenters, but I may
Right.
be near the bottom of the list.
Oh, well, let's see that. Okay, so welcome all. This is our 29th meeting of BC Open Discussion. And there was a question today, and I thought that would be interesting to talk about because I have searched on web how people are doing it and then failing about it, about adding notes via code. So we'll spend a little bit of time on how it should be done and what are the interfaces available while writing notes from code, and we'll go through that process. So we'll maybe spend majority of time there today, but let's go through the normals. Here's a link where you register every week. If you are here, want to be default attendee, drop your name and email. I just wanted to highlight these three different areas because I see people are adding detail here, and I just added this new area that if anybody wants to present, it's not mandatory that every time I have to present everything. So if you have a good topic, you want to talk about that, you can add your details in this area. Uh, and then this is the link for registration, and this link is for adding questions, which we discuss every week. So yeah, because I'm seeing some people have added questions in this area, so I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so we have few questions. Let's go through them, and then we'll talk about the notes thing. So the first question is from Rishi, and he's talking about how to develop and use custom .NET variables in Business Central. So .NET variables are still supported in Business Central on-prem per se, but I would kind of refer to what Microsoft is saying is even on-prem, don't use .NET variables because we all understand that the ultimate destination for a customer is going to be Business Central SaaS, and they will become a problem when you try to shift them to Business Central SaaS. So if I'll share this link, but if you refer the Microsoft GitHub page, they have said this that use Azure functions, and there are some blogs from MVPs which talks about how you can utilize this. So let me open that GitHub link so that we all can see it. Okay, where is that? I guess here. Okay. So here is this GitHub link from Microsoft, which talks about .NET types are not available in extension v2. What now? So if you read through it, Microsoft have given us more possibilities just once the .NET was removed, and here's the reason why Microsoft removed it, because it causes a safety issue on the cloud. So it was required to be removed, but then Microsoft recommends you to use other technologies which are available in Business Central, like HTTP calls, JSON, which we talked about, I guess, last week, XML, string builder, dictionaries, and list. So there are more ways to kind of solve the same business problem using the new options available. So don't be resistant on kind of .NET. And a kind of a recent example that I faced it is where the customer was using Nav 2009, and they had a .NET component or a OCX back then, which was opening Notepad from the Navision client, and they used to copy and paste something from a web browser or from a customer request. And when they click OK on the Notepad, it used to translate them into multiple lines of comments. But I guess that is the point where you see that, oh, the only way of fixing these kind of problem is .NET, but you actually need to talk it through again with your customer. What is the actual business requirement? And there can be ways that you can solve it without using .NET. So do refer this page. There are different articles from different MVPs, which are talking about how you should do it and what is the right way and what is the best way to kind of use it. So these are detailed article. I'm not going into details of it, but you can read it through. I'm pretty sure you'll find something that is useful, and you'll be able to here is an example of using JSON, which we discussed, and then HTTP client. So there are different ways that you can handle the similar .NET behavior that you had in the old versions of nav. So I'll put this link in the recording so you can see it later. Rishi. Okay, let's see the next question, which is around Azure versus Microsoft Cloud. And this is from Tejas, and I can be completely wrong about it, but I'll tell you my perspective of difference between an on-prem to an Azure and to a Microsoft Cloud, which is this. On an on-prem environment, you are responsible for servers and you are also responsible for the application, which in our case is Business Central. That means you need to maintain the server, you need to make sure that it's available. At the same time, you need to take care of application. You and your partner need to take care about upgrading that application as Microsoft releases new versions every time. When we talk about Azure, or I call it hosted, where you just remove the server part and now it's kind of managed by the hosting party. In case of Azure, that's Microsoft. That they take care of server, they take care of availability of your server and things like that. But still then the application is still managed by you and your partner, which means that anytime a minor or a major hotfix is released by Microsoft and the customer need it, it's your responsibility to kind of upgrade them every time. Now, the last thing in this is Business Central Online, where you neither care about the service and neither you care about the application. Anytime Microsoft releases a new minor or a major hotfix, that will be applied to your tenant on based on whatever those timelines are. For minor hotfix, there is no notification; they get applied automatically. For major hotfix, I guess you get 90 days notice where your partner can help you to test your customizations, and then that can be applied to your tenant. So to me, this is the major difference: what you have to manage and what the hosting party will manage. So in case of hosted, it can be Microsoft hosted on Azure, or there can be other third party hosting companies who can help you to host your servers on Azure. Anybody else want to add anything on this? Because this is what I feel about it.
Not an addition, but Saurabh, I would say this sort of question. In case of BC Online, do we have option to opt out for the upgrades or higher releases?
No,
Do the customers have any option to opt out?
no.
No.
And the reason is very simple, because someday we should kind of talk about multi-tenancy. I did my research, I guess, 5 years ago about it. So the way it works is, consider it as all your system table are on a separate database in a multi-tenant environment, which are your permission table, permission set table, and things like that. And then the tables which are company specific, they are part of your tenant database. So your database is not the only database in a tenant. There can be 10 to 100 to 1000 tenants in the single environment or single server, if you want to call it. So they can't just say that, okay, only upgrade this customer and don't upgrade this, because all those tenant database share one common application database. And I guess I have written an article series back in 2013 R2 when this was initially introduced. So when the application is updated, that applies to every tenant in that server, if you want to visualize it like this. And that's where Microsoft groups your upgrade based on which server you belong to. So all the tenant on that server get upgraded on the same day, more or less, because they all share the common application database. So even if there is a possibility, they can't have that option because it's multi-tenant, and there is no reason to kind of stop any upgrade. So I always think about this from the perspective of how we used to use Office before Office 365 was released. There used to be a product DVD. We'll plug that DVD into our CD-ROM and all, and we'll install that product. And you might be running a Office 2017 on Windows, let's say, I guess not 10, but Windows 8 or 7, and that's okay. But now, when Office became Office 365, I don't even know when my Office was last upgraded. Maybe last night. And to tell you the truth, I don't care when it got upgraded because it doesn't impact my work that I'm doing in my office environment. So having it on cloud, on specifically on a SaaS model where software as a service, it makes it like upgrades kind of became non-event. And if I look it, because I have worked majorly on upgrades from an upgrade developer perspective, I think upgrade was the major reason why people were leaving Nav, because they were not frequently upgrading. So they didn't knew how much Microsoft was putting effort into the product. So like, I'm doing an upgrade right now from a very old version, and they are seeing so many possibilities with the base product that they didn't had in the previous version. And the only reason why they didn't knew it because they were not upgrading. Once they come to Business Central SaaS world, then they will be upgraded every month, and they'll keep on getting new functionalities in the product or enhancement in the product as Microsoft introduce them into the product. So I can be biased, but I feel that the only reason of going to SaaS is to eliminate this upgrade pain and confusion that customer community had, that upgrades are destructive, they'll cause problems, we can't have people testing the whole application for 6 months and things like that. Once you're in cloud, you're upgrading every day, more or less. Okay, so let's see the next question.
Well,
Go. Yeah.
regarding that, the one counterpoint that I have seen a couple times lately is, I guess, a couple factors. One is there are still some customers with problematic internet access at certain facilities, and so they are sometimes doing a hybrid approach where some companies or facilities are on-prem and others are online. And so apparently with Business Central, I don't know how it's implemented, there's a mix and customers are using both. The other argument from Waldo and others who have very large customers, one example is they have over 1 million items in their on-prem system, and those customers are able to throw the hardware at their systems to achieve much better performance, supposedly, than they could in the cloud. And my limited understanding is that the Business Central SaaS cloud environment is not necessarily the highest performing Azure resources, and that an on-prem hardware setup could outperform it potentially. That's the argument that has been offered to me. I don't know how accurate that is, but that seems to be the case.
And that's true. As in, like now when I look at from the time when Microsoft introduced Business Central Online or Business Central SaaS, there has been improvement, but they are a little bit slower than I guess we were expecting it as a community, because the database size limit has been expanded than
Right.
it was earlier. But yes, we have customers with TBs of database, and even to suggest them to go to SaaS is not even a feasible option, even if they
Right.
have best internet speeds and everything.
Right.
because the database size cost as of today on Business Central Online will be huge for them,
That makes sense. Yep. Good point.
right? At the same time, there are certain areas of the business which needs to execute faster. Like you may have customer who do sales, like rapid sales throughout the day, and the only process they want faster in their system is the sales process. And that's where I guess the SaaS model kind of causes problem, because in on-prem you still have ways where you can do things faster. No, they are not the suggested ways from Microsoft, but if a customer business only runs on a specific process and they want it faster, that can be easily achieved on on-prem than on being on SaaS. But as of today, I think the Business Central SaaS is especially for those customer whose database are pretty small, and at the same time, if they do a calculation on cost basis, they might be cheaper to be on SaaS than be on prem. So it's, there are multiple factors that I guess we also go through in our sales cycle before we suggest where they should upgrade to. And yeah, there are different kind of situations where you might don't not want them at this point.
Right. Makes sense.
In addition to what you both said, I think there is a session in Dynamics Con by David Singleton. I believe he keeps advocating the hybrid model. So I think there is a session on on-prem or a hybrid model.
On-prem hybrid?
No, means something hybrid model or something. There is a session by David Singleton, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I'll try to attend it because I don't understand how you can have a SaaS hybrid. I know how you can have an on-prem hybrid, but because the way Microsoft replication work is it only replicates from on-prem to SaaS. So if I have five, locations where Business Central is being used, and to Steve's point, if on out of those five there are two places where internet speed is bad, and I kind of install Business Central on-prem on those locations, and then try to replicate that data to SaaS, which is a possibility. But then that data, which is getting updated on SaaS, that will not be kind of available for the users on-prem. So it's a one directional data transfer, which is from on-prem to the SaaS using the Microsoft replication tool.
So is that
Yeah.
not a real-time system?
It's not real time. It's actually, you can schedule it. Okay. But if you have, let's say, bad internet, just to take an example, you don't have to worry about it. As soon as the internet comes up, it'll go back into SaaS. But it never comes from SaaS to on-prem. So, if those five companies, which I was taking as an example, are different companies in one database, then that's okay. Because then, I, as a company A user, don't want to see what company B user did, which is okay. But if it is one database and one company, then I don't know how that's possible. So I'll try to attend it. Maybe I'm missing something, but that's my understanding at this point. Okay. So let's move to the next question, which is about adding notes in Business Central using code. So let's first understand what are notes and how we use them, and then we'll see how we can kind of add notes programmatically. Because when this question was asked, I was actually searching on web that how people are responding to it before I can even reply to this question. And all the replies seems kind of irrelevant the way it should be done. And this process has been a little bit changed in the Business Central versions. So let's see. And I'll kind of take an example which I have done in past, so that makes sense. So this was a requirement that I did once, which is that we have contacts in Business Central. which we use to kind of record interactions with our customers, what kind of transaction we have done, sales, purchase, and we want to record it per contact wise, which is a very common NAV requirement also. Now that's a behind the scene thing, but at the same time, when I, as the company person, is calling this contact, and whatever I hear from him, I want to add it as a note so that other people can see it. This was my, this is my first call, Robert, and save it. So this actually gets stored into a system table called record lines. Anytime we create a note, that gets stored into a table called record links behind the scene into a blob field. Now the requirement was something like this, that if there are multiple contacts to a company, so anything that is bold is a type of company contact, and anything which is not bold is a person type of contact. So there can be, as in Cronus have, I guess, only one contact per company, but there can be multiple contact person in a company. So the requirement was that anytime someone reaches to one particular contact and add a note there, I want to see all those in my company contact also. All the contacts that are done to any person in that company should be visible here, so that I don't have to navigate on every contact person and see what was the interaction that was done. That I have to call this person at that date and things like that. So they were trying to use this note functionality here like this. So the requirement is that when a note is being created by a user, a new note is created, but this time it is created for the type of company so that it attached to here. So let's try to do that and understand how notes are kind of done in Business Central using code. So this is the repo. I'll get that uploaded. I guess it's already sync. I'll get that sync up in the SaaS, sorry, in the GitHub later. So let's open, add a new file. Why I cannot add a new file? Okay, here it is. And let's call it record link subscriber code unit.al. Okay. Let's add a code unit to subscribe to that event, that whenever a note is added, so that we can kind of use that. So I think that should be free. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to subscribe the, whenever a new record link or a note is added into the record link table. So by default, we'll use our event subscriber of type table, and this will get converted to database, and the table that we are looking for is record links. Now if you see this table stores the record, as in the note, based on record ID, which means that every record has a unique record ID. So this kind of acts as a secondary, more or less, primary key. The primary key of this table is a record link ID, which is auto increment. So that means we don't have to kind of set this up. It'll automatically increment that number. And then the note is actually stored. So there is a type field, which is of link or note. And then the note gets stored into this blob field. And then other fields, when it was created, who created it, for which company it was created. Do you want to notify? Notify means that it shows you that user on his role center page that you have a notification and things like that. But that's it. So what we need to do is anytime a new record is added for my contact table, and if it is of type person, then I need to create a separate note for type company. Okay. So let's subscribe to on after insert, and there's no element name, and this should be false, and this should also be false. I guess we all know it. If there is any confusion, stop me at that point. I'll make it easier. I'll name this function, and then I can pick the variables that I need. Okay. So the two variables that I've picked is the record link that is being inserted and the run trigger. And I hope you all understand now that what run trigger means. Run trigger means that if when the code when a record is added on a table from page, it calls the insert true rather than just the insert. So when we write any table dot insert, let's say if I do something like this, I can leave it like this, and the default value of this is false. The difference between keeping it false or true is that whatever is written on this table on insert trigger, that gets fired, which is if in this table there was a trigger on insert trigger, that code will only get fired if I write insert true. If I write insert blank or insert false, that code will not be executed. So in an event subscriber, using this run trigger, you know that do I need to execute my custom code or not. So if you only want to run your code when somebody does a insert true, and I always prefer doing it because that makes sense, you can skip the situation if the true is not called. My every subscriber for on insert, modify, rename and delete always starts with this line, which is if the user or the process that is trying to insert the record is not using insert true, then don't call my code. And that's, I guess, a longer debate, but the simple reason is that it might be a situation where a temporary record is just being inserted to kind of sometime doing rounding adjustments and things like that, where you don't want to call your custom code because it's a system generated line just to do adjustment on rounding of your sales order or purchase line. So on those situations, I don't want to call my custom code. If there is a situation where I'll need it, then I'll comment this line. Otherwise, I always start with this line. So now let's do our check. So for that, what we'll do is we'll create a function, insert record link if required, and we'll pass the rec. I try to keep my subscriber as small as it can be, and it also helps me on my automated testing because then I can do function level testing if I have to. Okay. So the first thing that we need to see, because if you notice, the record, the notes is an area which is available throughout the application. You can go to any page, you'll find that there is a note area. So our subscriber should only call when this is called for this from this particular page, which is, let's see, help and support. Okay. And this is pointing to table, sorry, not this. This is pointing to the table 5050. So if the record link that is inserted is not for 5050, then I have to do nothing. So the first thing that I always do is I check for situations where I can skip from my code. If my record link, record ID, now record ID, a record ID is kind of a unique data type in Business Central, which stores the table number and the primary key of the record. So a record ID for a customer record will start from 18, which is the customer table number, and then will follow the customer number. In case of sales header, it'll be 36, I guess. Yeah, 36. And then the document type and document number. So the record ID contain two information, which is the table number and the primary key fields of any table. If there are 5 fields in the primary key, it will have values for all 5 fields. So from this, I can actually read my table number. So when I get the table number, if it is what we saw is not, if it is 5050, then we'll proceed, otherwise we'll not. And then the other condition that we talked about is we only want to create a new node if it is created, if it is of type node. As in we saw that on the record link table that there are two types of entries, one is link and one is node. So when somebody attaches a link here, that also gets stored in the same table, but then that is tagged as of type link. If it is of type node, then I want to move ahead, otherwise I don't. So in that case, what I want to do is I want to create one more thing, I guess. Yeah, we need to check that is it of type contact. So for that, what we'll have to do, maybe this is some other day where I'll explain this, I guess. About the list of text, anybody have heard about it or used it? There's this new data type in Business Central, which is, let's say, I'll name it as rec list. Is list of any type of data type that you want. You can have list of booleans, you can have list of blobs, I guess, integers, anything. It's kind of a dynamic array if you want to call it. So yeah, this is something which is super big, as in this is interesting data type. Anybody want to read about it? I guess there is Microsoft documentation available for it. The way I'm going to use it here is I'm going to store the record ID into this. And then I'm going to split this because, as I said, record ID contains two things, which is table number and the primary key field. So I'm going to do a split of it. In the part 1, there will be the table number, and in the part 2, there will be the primary key of that table. So we have already checked that it is coming from 5050. So that means the second part of this list will contain the contact number, which is the primary key of that table. So what I'll do is I'll create a variable of type contact, which will be of contact table. And then I'll check that if contact.get my record list dot get, and you can pass an index. So there are two ways: passing an index and a result will be written on a text, or you can just do a get on index. So I know that my second field should be a contact number in this particular case. I can do then, rather I'll do if not get then exit. And my next skip statement is if the contact that I got is of type company, then I don't want to do anything because I just need to execute my code if it is of type person. So now this is done. I have done all my checks. At this point, if my code reaches to this point, that means the note that was added was of type person. So at this point, I can create company note. I can pass my record link and then the contact that I just found out.
Saurav,
Yeah.
so what will be stored in rec list when you do format record link dot record id dot split? So
What will
what
be
will be?
stored? So the record list will have two things.
Mhm.
One would be the 5050 at the index 1, and the index 2 will have the, because I know that it is for 5050, so I
Mhm.
know that there will be only one field after that for 5050, which is the contact number that will
Okay.
get stored in 2. If you do same for sales order, okay, or sales header in this case,
Mhm.
then your sales order number will be stored in 3, because
Okay.
in that case it will be 36, which is the table number, then the document type, and then the document number.
Okay.
So index 1, index 2, and index 3. At this point, because I know it is for 5050, so I know the next field after my 5050 will be, let's say, 20 or 2020, which is my contact number. So this is
Mhm.
at my index 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now what we have to do is we just have to create that contact of that type uh, for the company type. Now I didn't check one thing I should have, which is, where should I check that? Here. Every blob can be empty, right? So if my record dot note dot has value, if it does not have a value note, then I don't want to do anything, because if it is empty, then I don't care to move ahead. So I just eliminated that situation here. Okay. Coming to at this point, now I want to kind of extract whatever the info that is stored in this note for the person type of contact, because the same text I want it on my company one note. So what I'll do is let's create a variable of person contact text. Now I need to read that blob field. Now if you go back into how people are suggesting into forums, is kind of doing that outstream in stream. But when we talk about record links, Microsoft actually added an interface in the record links. Now there is a code unit on this for record link management, and it was not there in the NAB versions of the product. I can use this code unit to kind of, let's see what we can do with this. Link management. I can copy a link from one person to another person. Let's expand this, read more about it. From a particular record to a particular record. That's one way. I can read a note I can write a note, and if there is, a old note which for some reason still there, but the associated record is removed, then there is a function which can remove those orphan links. I can use copy links. Will kind of copy the person contact node into the company node, but I want to add the contact details so that they can be easily seen at the company level. So what I'll do is I'll read that note, and the parameters that it need is the record link. So I'll pass my record link. So now whatever the text was inside that is now passed to my person contact text. And then I just have to create a company contact variable, which is again pointing to the contact table. And then let's set this up. Get from my, let's call this as person contact so that we don't get confused. And then I'll just get it from person contact dot company number. This kind of linking between those two different kind of contact is based on the company number. So again, my normal way, which is if it is not found, then go back. I don't proceed after this point. And if that is done, if I found this, then I'll just modify my person contact text and add the details as in contact person. And then we'll take the person contact dot first name plus person contact dot last name. Is that not last name? There should be. Huh. Weird. There is no last name. Okay, let's see. Oh, that is in this is called surname. Surname. And then let's add it back to whatever we read earlier. So at the company level, I want to make it easier so that people can see that the contact person was this and this was the note, so that it's easier that who was contacted and on what date and things like that. Once I have this, now I just need to add the record link. So let's create a function, add record link for company. And the only thing that I want to pass is my record link, person contact, and my person contact text. Okay. So this is passed as well. Person contact is not required and person contact is there. Okay. So we'll follow the same, which is we'll create a variable for record links because that is what we are going to do. And this is person record link, and this is record link of, let's say, company. Okay. And I guess that's it. We'll just copy all the details from the person contact and we will create this. So I can do company record link dot init and then this dot insert. Now we'll initialize all the fields that we need, which is record ID. The record ID will be my, where is my company contact? I should have passed the, not the person. I guess I should pass the company contact also. Okay, so let's pass company contact. have it here. So I can set the record ID of my company contact dot record ID. You can just get the record ID by saying this. And then let me copy this part because this will be repeating. I'll copy all the fields from the person company so that they all remain as it is. Description. Person contact dot. Oh, wait a minute. I did pass the record link, company contact and person contact. So I need to get the record. Oh, this is personal record link. Okay, person record link. Description, that's passed. Then the type is of type note. And then it's created on the same day as of person record link dot created. And then next one would be user ID who created it, the same user ID who created the person record link. So that's easier to see there. And then we have the company record link dot company name, which is same as person record link dot company. Now the only thing that is missing is the note that we need to set. And we have already seen that we can use the same code unit, kind of write the note. So you don't have to manually build it using outstreams and any streams to kind of pass it. You can just pass the company record link dot record link management dot write note, and this function needs the record link where you want to pass it, which is in our case company record link. And the second thing is that note, which is of type text, which we already had as person contact text. Now this interface is there, which will handle this code and write the note as it is, as it is in this text. So this code unit is kind of core to understand when you're trying to write and read the notes and write it back from the code. So let's try running this and see what happens when we add a note now. Okay. This public. So let's move to the contact. So we have a note here, which is not visible here at this point. If we add a new note, as soon as I click OK, my subscriber should fire. And this is my second note should pass here also, which is, I might have to kind of correct the way I have written that. But if you see, it says contact person was Robert. So I know that this was created for this. And the node that was added was, this is my second node, which is kind of added here. So they had, I guess, 10 or 15 contact person per company. And they just wanted a similar view whenever a note is added. so that they can just look at the company one and see what interactions are recorded into the notes area. So does that make sense?
Saurav, while
Yeah.
you were working on this, I was searching for documentation on record link. Is that a type of record? I haven't found any documentation on it, at least no Microsoft documentation.
Record links as a table.
Well, in your code, you
Let me go
have
back there. Yeah.
Okay, so in your declaration, like you have var record link colon record space record link.
Yeah.
So what is that? Is that a record object? Is that a type
That's a
of record?
table.
Oh, that's a table called record link.
Yes, it stores two kind of things, which is whenever you add a link or a note, that gets added into that table.
Got it.
And the way system is able to show it on a specific page when you are in is based on the record ID, which we
Yep.
talked about earlier.
Yep. Which is the page and
the table primary key and the record unique record.
Right, table primary key. Got it. Okay, so I was looking for information on the record link, and I didn't find anything, but I will search for record link table now. Record link. I see some forum posts about it, but yeah, I don't see any Microsoft documentation of that table. So
yeah, that's a system table. Let's see.
Okay,
I guess.
Got it.
It's a 2,068 table.
Okay.
And it's kind of act behind the scenes, and it is, as in we know it more or less at this point is because in the older versions of nav, what used to happen is people used to store these record links, and now the problem is that, and I guess we talked about it in the past, is in the older version, because it was Windows client, we were able to point this link to my local drive or a shared drive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And then add documents into it, like PDFs and things like that.
Yep. Yeah,
Now,
Dynamics
because it's
GT has the same issue.
Now this is converted to kind of a web address, and that's where the whole upgrade kind of causes problem, because all these documents are important for our customers. So then what you do is there is something called as documents linked record. What that is called? Let me see. Not incoming document. There's something.
So it's like an attachment now?
Yes.
Okay.
So it actually gets stored there against that document, but it's stored in a media type of variable behind the scene.
Okay.
So that makes it again easier.
But those attachments will be stored in the Business Central database.
But they are not counted against your tenant database size. It is counted against that 40 GB.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So as I was explaining a little while ago, that on a multi-tenant environment, there is something called as application and there is a tenant.
Yep.
There are majority of your Business Central table are inside this tenant database.
Yep.
And then there are some table which are part of the application area.
Okay.
And those are kind of common to everybody. So now this that 80 GB limit is here, and that 40 GB limits is here, more or less, if you want to kind of look at it from that perspective.
Got it.
So most of the base Microsoft files are actually stored in a way that they consume this area, not this area.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or anything that they think we can talk about next week?
Saurav?
Yeah.
So I'm experiencing an issue with the base 64 converter. So what I'm using currently the code unit to convert the file into base 64.
Yes.
So what I'm facing is that when the file is above 20 MB, the system returns an error that it should
Yes.
convert within certain time frame.
Yeah, as in, so I guess I forgot the name. The lady is not here today, but she also had this question asked to me, and I did a little bit research, and I think the limit of base 64 also comes uh, in reference to the Outlook file size limit. You can't email every file because it need to kind of get converted to a format and then transport to a network and then reach to the recipient. So when you
Oh,
add a file in your attachment, if it is, I guess, more than 20 or 25 MB, it rejects that
no,
file.
actually, I'm not sending over the mail. I'm just trying
Right.
to, yeah, I'm just trying to convert in base 64, and then I'm storing that file in on FTP. So,
That's what I'm
bef
saying, that the same limit that you have more or less on your email,
okay,
the size limit, that same limit is kind of being imposed or allowed in the base 64 convert, because there is no direct formula when I search it for the base 64 limits. But the all the references that I found out is it's kind of related to the same way like Outlook email attachment request is, which is again somewhere around 20 or 25 MB.
okay. Is there any way I can compress the file under 20 MB and then can convert it to base 64?
Yes, as in we talked about compression last time, right? That converting it to a zip file.
Oh, for
Then
that,
it,
the base 64 converter will also work for in the same
yeah,
way?
yeah, for any file, either it's a zip file or any file.
Okay, okay,
So it's not only for pictures or any text file. Even if you have a PDF which you have compressed as zip, it will support it. But then you need to keep that in mind that your compressed file should be less than the size limit.
right, understood.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, then I'll let you guys go and then we'll meet next week.
Thank you. Thanks, Saurabh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Saurav.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you, Saurabh.
Thanks, man.